Oh, yeah. Hello to everybody. And so here it is very sunny. And I was also told back in UK, weather is very, very good. And but also yesterday I watched a news recorded by BBC, and they show several different charts, and most the I think five or six different countries they did a survey, and very astonishingly, British people are most obeying the rules given by I was amazed, and anyway, so the very sunny, very beautiful day in terms of the weather, but it is quite, I think, all over the world, quite somber, quite difficult, the time, and that was very clearly reflected yesterday when I watched, the Pope Francis, delivering his Easter, the I don't know what you call it, statement or the advice, and in this beautiful, the building, St. Peter's Basilica inside, beautiful, beautiful, but just three of them, and hardly there, anybody there. And that really reflects, how serious the situation is, and although that Easter is one of the most important events in the Christian calendar, but still, the entire place was empty, apart from the Pope and his two attendants. So when I was, listening and reflecting on the entire atmosphere, I mean, of course, from the watching the video, it reminds us, things are very, very fluctuating, and constantly changing. And, last year, I'm sure that I can remember when, Pope John, Pope Francis delivered the Easter statement. I'm sure the entire that, in front of the St. Peter's Basilica, that amazing courtyard or whatever you call it, was full of people, and this year is completely empty. So this is what not just those great teachers like the Buddha and those great masters have remind us, again and again to understand, to realize the nature of impermanence. But these events are showing us these are the direct, the teachings, not just verbal saying, these are the direct teachings of nature, of impermanence. That's what I thought yesterday when I watched that short clip of that. So, yeah, and yesterday and today, I'm well. And as I mentioned the other day, the virus has not reached has not reached surrounding the Indian towns and the Tibetan communities in here, in Karnataka, although Karnataka state has new cases, but they are not, as far as we know, what they talk about. I think every day around 5 in the afternoon, evening, they release some kind of list. People passed away, how many new cases are there. So, following that, the area where we live have not touched yet by this virus. But as I said, mentally we are constantly planning to do that, to prepare for that, and talk to the monks, talk to the relevant the monks who are in charge of and also to help the clinics in Sarah. They are also taking from their capacity, they are taking very seriously. And today I received 2 or 3 calls from the Sarame Health, the clinic, and saying, they are going to do the 3rd round of checking the monks' temperature, and so they already done twice. Now, this Thursday, they're going to start the 3rd round, and they're going to distribute face mask, a very simple, basic face mask, and they're also going to distribute some hand sanitizer. Yeah, we do all our best in our capacity, and then that is how it is. As I mentioned several times, it is very, very strange, very, very strange. Sounds, you are waiting something, but you really don't want to see that. You really don't want to meet that, but you are waiting for something, and it's very strange. Anyway, I'm well. So today my reading, again, I'm going back to the book that I keep this book next to me when I was doing things, reading, and there are constantly nice, very nice statements keep coming. So I thought it is good to have a little bit still to read a little bit this book. So the first that I'm going to read is again from Dhammapada. Nice short, this quotation. In a heading, it says stillness. It is still in the skills for life. So an actual quotation. Hearing the law, the wise become like a calm, unruffled lake. So that's the statement. Hearing the law, the wise become a calm, unruffled lake. So that is the short statement. So hearing the law, and wise become. So what does that mean, hearing the law? And that is what really, we are constantly talking about since we start this conversation. And also, I'm sure many of you have heard from those great teachers and read from the books, and also I'm sure have contemplated, reflected on. So those hearing the law in the sense, how things are, the internal things, our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions, our bodies, and also external things, and they all have, they share some certain characteristics, as I mentioned the other day, my body, my feelings, my thoughts, my emotions, my possessions, they all have their own unique characteristics, but also they all share certain general characteristics or features, like, for example, being impermanent, subject to change, the required to coming together, have 100% dependent on other factors. And these all are common characteristics, common features. My body, my feeling, my thoughts, my emotions, and also my external possessions, and including the building where I live. They all, they have the same characteristics. But they also have similar, some unique features. As I mentioned, my body and your body, have a very different characteristic than my minds and your minds. The body is made of these, physical substances, genes, whatever, molecules, and the mind is not. So they have these kind of unique. So understanding these laws or these realities, that way the people who understand them as they are, and even though in the surface, in the externally, at the moment and currently, what is, billions of people are affected, and millions of people are affected by this virus, and many families lost their loved one. Those are taking place, and of course there are strong emotions, sad emotions, anxieties are experienced. But in a deep down, there's a tremendous sense of calmness, because they understand how things are. And that's what here it is talking about, the hearing the law, hearing, understanding, realizing how things are, and which, we almost the first day we talk about, all these things, including this COVID-19 virus, they come into being when the causes and conditions are created or met. When and that understanding, of course, we must follow all the instructions, all the advice given by those medical people, those the scientific people, and so on and so forth. Of course, those are very important for one's own well-being, and also for the well-beings of our friends, loved ones, and the strangers. Because as I keep saying, and this is what very much in my head, that airline instruction, it is. And so those things, there are both ways to support yourself. That will help to yourself. It is also to help others. They talk about, keeping distance, social distancing, and using the mask, and so on and so forth. Of course, we should follow that. But at the same time, have the full understanding of the nature of the reality, nature of the things. And in that way, we will have although sad will experience, the loss will experience, fear will experience, but these will be more in the surface. And deep down, there will be deep sense of calmness, deep sense of, in other words, it says, like those big, lake. When a wind comes, the surface of the lake will disturb, would have waves, but in the underneath, the deep down, there's a sense of calmness. Not as sort of, disturbed as in the surface. And that's what here, this quotation from Dhammapada, which I thought is very nice to remind ourselves, the importance of having understanding of how things are. It is not just the difficulty things, it is also the good things. In our lives, there are many good things. It is not just, for example, at the moment, this virus is going on, and then there are lots of sadness and fears, but there are also many, many good things. Just hearing, for me, one of the most moving and sense of hope and sense of, when we read the 8 verses of the mind training, the first verse, Dāne simje tamje la yishino bu lel hakpe, tenjo drube sambai takto jebar simbar sho. Treating or seeing all living beings, all sentient beings, as more precious as precious gem. Dāne simje tamje. Tenjo drube sambai, takto jebar simbar sho. Because, relation to the living beings, relation to the sentient beings, I'm able to accomplish great meaning. Therefore, I will cherish all living beings, very much, all the time. So that is, in the 8 verses of mind training, the first line, treating the living beings are very precious, very important. That can be important, precious, can be looked at from many different aspects, from the religious aspects and so on. And from these days, when we read and think and see these doctors and nurses and cleaners and, volunteers and millions coming and really more or less sacrificing their own life to save others' life. And that is really, that tremendous sense of hope within the humanity. We are not all the time, keep killing each other. We are not all the time, fighting each other. We are not all the time sort of competing each other. We have that kind of... So those are the things, although there is a tremendous difficulties going on, but there's also, the expressing, or as I mentioned the other day, usually, normally these people who delivered our news and information, they always talk about the disaster things, all the. Of course, those are important to inform, but they don't inform those positive things. And in fact, although in a bigger scale, in a more dramatic way, otherwise, these nurses, the cleaners and doctors and the other, social service people, they keep doing that year in year and year. I mean, this time it's more in a dramatic scale, and they are under the spotlight. Therefore, everything has become very obvious. So so therefore, when we talk about, to understand the reality of the things and events, I'm not talking about just the suffering side, but also look at more the positive side. And that way, then we will have a sense of, as I mentioned, the hope within the humanity. Once I remember, I can't remember where it is, but His Holiness, I was traveling with His Holiness, and there was a question, and what he expressed, hope is one of the most important, what you call the emotion for us to survive individually and collectively. When we lost the hope, for our survival, for our whatever, then we will not achieve what we want to achieve. And that was very amazing. He answered that, and I can't remember exactly under which context. But therefore, that is also important to us to remind ourselves. Okay. Now then, similar vein to this quotation, and again that amazing Sri Lankan, man or the person, Payadasi Thara. So, quote: a tranquil mind is unshaken by loss and gain, blame and praise, and undisturbed by adversity. This frame of mind is brought about by viewing the sentient world in its proper perspective. Thus, evenness of mind leads man to enlightenment and deliverance from suffering. So I will look at more in the first part of that. He says, a tranquil mind is unshaken by loss and gain, blame and praise, and undisturbed by adversity. So that is really something very similar to the previous one, but looking from the different perspective. And the Shantideva clearly stated in Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, in Tibetan, he says, Dala Toba Shen Mebe Megar Chishu, Dala Meba Shen Tobe Dagar Chishu. So these two are very similar, the similar situation, similar sort of meaning. So the first, the thing about Shantideva's case, when he was talking about, from the practicing, cultivating the altruistic awakened mind, bodhicitta. When the bodhicitta is really, cultivated, experienced, actualized, then the loss or gain, blame or praise will not affect, not make any not make any difference to the individual when his or her mind is, nurtured by the bodhicitta, the altruistic awakened mind. So the Dala Toba Shen Mebe Mega Chishu, so they are saying there are people who praise me, so therefore why bother when the other group of people, blame on me? And that same the other way around, when there are people who blame on me, why I should be very hilarious when people praise on me? So that sort of things. So praise and blame will not affect. Once our mind is really, nurtured by the like bodhicitta, the altruistic awakened mind, or whatever term that you use, and that is what tranquil mind. Tranquil in the sense, that the bias to the, the due to the attachment, due to the aversion, or completely ignored due to the, what you call the, the indifference, not in that. So therefore, your mind is very tranquil, very calm, because many of our minds are constantly disturbed because sometimes we are attached to certain things or certain people. In that time, when we are blamed, then we get upset. And on the other case, we are very hostile, we are very, difficult, we are very, and when praised on that situation, again, we are very disturbed, we are unhappy, and that's what's happening. When so therefore, and this master, when he talks about a tranquil mind, a calm mind, tranquil, calm, relaxed mind, can be looked at in many different ways. And Shantideva's, I think, point of view is when the mind is tranquil, in the sense your mind is nurtured by the bodhicitta. At that time, your mind is calm. Your mind is not, your mind is not disturbed by praise or blame, or you are able to stay steadily and calm and like that. And, loss, unshaken by loss or gain. Some of those very basic, quite often the term is used, 8 worldly practice. When you are praised, when you are gained, you are very, up, very high. When you're lost, when you are blamed, you are very, down and depressed, and disturbed. And that is the sign of our mind is not in a state of calm or tranquil. And that is really something for us to, important to understand. That calm and tranquil can be experienced in many different layers, in many different ways. Like, for example, just cultivating sense of calm, sense of relaxation, just watching the breath, watching the sensation will bring certain levels of calm, relaxed mind. But that, another levels of tranquil or calm will be, state of mind will be experienced, when I mentioned earlier, when we understand the nature of the things and events as they are. Again, in that level, we will experience a sense of calm, as in Dhammapada explains, like the, calm, the lake, which is, deep down, not troubled by the winds or the storms. And also, tranquil mind can be experienced, just as Shantideva is explaining. When we when our mind is free from bias attitude, that kind of very discriminative, very, or free from the self-centered attitude, manner, behavior, then again we'll experience different levels of tranquil mind. And then, of course, when we understand, particularly from the, Mahayana teachings point of view, when we realize nature of emptiness, again our mind will, we will experience different levels of tranquil, calm mind. So that is really here today's, our reading, and I found this very, very, very helpful to read some of those, is that one? Okay. Now I'll read one short. This is also from Sutra. This sutra is from Pali, collection of Pali Sutra. This is Equilibrium, quote. develop the mind of equilibrium, you will always be getting, praise and blame, but do not let either affect the pulse of the mind or follow the calmness, the absence of pride. So this is, similar to what I just read, those two quotations, saying, develop the mind of equilibrium, and you will always be getting, praise and blame, but do not let either affect the pulse of the mind, follow the calmness, the absence of pride. So this pride here, equilibrium is more in this case, or the tranquil or the calmness is more related to when our mind is, relatively free from, I usually use the term negative pride, that arrogant mind, that arrogant mind. And when we experience, when our mind is in a state of that kind of negative pride or arrogant mind, then it is very easy to be disturbed by the praise or the blame. And it will be very, very painful either way. So, even when we are praised by what we have done, the sense of some kind of high will not last that long. Soon after moment, immediately, because of this negative pride, the arrogant mind. And this one is more like explaining, cultivating equilibrium of mind, or calmness is more dealing with the negative pride. And the arrogant mind is not it's very, very painful mind. Quite often it stays very much back. Usually, most of the people, it doesn't come at the forefront, but it is always in the background of our usual, So therefore, today's my point is, as I mentioned last time, the training our mind to experience calm, equilibrium, tranquil, whatever those quality of mind, has to be looked at from many different angles, and also applying many different, what you call the means and methods, not just one meditation type of meditation, not just one sort of means. We need to look at it from the many different levels. As the for example, today's topic, tranquility or the equilibrium or the calmness, is experienced in many different ways by freeing our mind from the different obstacles, like freeing our mind from the self-centered mind. Shantideva said, the praise and blame will not disturb your mind. Your mind is, when you are praised, your mind is in a peace and calm. When you are blamed, your mind is peace and calm. Because your mind is free from the self-centered attitude. So those are the things which today, the last blah blah and today's, of course, talking to the present, this virus, what is happening, but also we need to have long-term, I'm sure many of you have, sort of steady, cultivating, working with our minds, thoughts, and emotions. Why I'm saying that is, the other day I was asked to have an interview, and most of the questions from that interview are very, very big. I cannot handle. I said to the person, no, I cannot handle these big questions. And saying, what do you think after this, post-virus, or how the world is going, and is going to go towards a positive or negative? I said, I don't know. And I don't know how I'm going to act after post-virus, how I'm going to judge to how the world is going to. But I hope, there's some sort of positive, sort of result from this very unpleasant and very challenging, common, the difficulties. The common in the sense, yesterday when I watched, that brief short clip from Boris Johnson, I thought, this virus hasn't any discrimination. It's free from discrimination. It's something. It doesn't discriminate rich, poor, political, or the people who play with the politics, or doesn't really discriminate. So, or the West or East or North and South. So we all sort of experience common, and this common experiencing, a very difficult experience, should bring some kind of common positive result. And that's what I said to this person who interviewed online, and I don't know whether he liked it or not. I said, I don't know. I really don't know. But it is important to individually, we should have some sort of, what we have already, many of you have, to build more strength and to cultivate, to move forward bit by bit. Okay, I think that's really it. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to see you in next, because tomorrow I'm going away because I need to go to see something. I have no choice. So either I'm going to stay there tomorrow night, still not very clear, because all the hotels are closed. I don't know how they're going to organize that. So, and if we are going to stay there, I won't be back there after tomorrow, by this time. Anyway, you. Okay, take care.